Which really means everything. Everything's good about that.
Without human interaction.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Meeting of Wahoo City Council, July 23rd, 7 o'clock p.m. Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall. If you want more information, there's more up at City Hall offices. Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Stuart Creechy.
Here.
Shane Sweet.
Here.
Carl Warford.
Here.
Ryan Diaz.
Here.
Chris Rappel.
Here.
Patrick Nick.
Okay, there's no proclamations. Comments from the audience. If you are speaking on something that's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to speak. So if you would come forward, whoever is going to be speaking, there's a sign-up sheet here. If you would sign your name and address. Thank you. And introduce yourself, please.
Well, good evening, everyone. Matt Sutton, I'm with the VFW over here in Wahoo, Post 4502. I don't come here tonight to, represent the VFW. I come with my fellow veterans to, talk about John Chapek, and he'll maybe discuss some of his concerns with his house over on, is it 403 Chestnut?
Chestnut, yeah.
So I'll let you go ahead and express your interest in your home with the recent flood.
I think, yeah, we had, everybody knows I had the recent flood. I'm on 433 South Chestnut, across the tracks, and I got the biggest brunt of the flood, I think, that time. And it filled up my basement to the top, and it's been, probably almost 2 months now since it's went through. And I'm finally just cleaning up. It's really a hassle. Thank God my daughter was back. She helped me. She lives in Seattle, and she came back and helped me straighten up the outside a little bit. But down the basement was really the worst part. And Tara's my daughter's name, and she hired 1-800-You-Got Junk guys, and they did the first go round, and they never came back. And then she found another bunch, and they did another probably half, and they didn't come back either. Just really a tough, bad job, Silts in there, and all my clothes, and all my pictures in the Vietnam memorabilia, and my Vietnam tapes, and my speakers, and my tape decks, and all that is gone. I guess main thing is that, though, I have myself, and my puppies, or two dogs. And I guess, I don't know, I'm real confused. I don't know exactly where we stand as far as, can I clean it up? I know I can't rebuild anything around there. I know that. I realize that. But I don't see any cracks in the structures. I got the basement pretty well cleaned out. I can see the walls, all the walls. And I don't see one crack. There wasn't no damage that I could see. That's apparent. House wasn't rocking or nothing like that. It just, the water just kind of went around it and filled up the basement and kept on going. The main brunt of the water came from that dike that's along the creek there. There's a dike there, and it came over in one spot, just right west of me. And that was a big gush of water. That really did it. Because in 2019 we had it up to I got a berm around the house. We had it's in about 4 or 5 inches, but it never went. It always usually went on poor guy on the other side in his field. The water went that way usually. And I guess my question is, where do I stand? What can I do? What can I do? is there any stipulations or what's really going on? I was told it's uninhabitable, so I did buy a camper to stay in. I have it next to the house, but I really don't see much wrong in the house, you know. And the house is the main floor is normal, you know, and so I don't know where we're standing with the city and everybody else. I guess my question is that permanently, you know, and because I did intend to stay there. My wife passed away about 2 years ago, and we were going to stay there the rest of our lives, you know, and she had a bout with cancer, and which lasted several years. But anyway, it just a question on my mind, you know. Every day, I guess. I think somebody's gonna be at the door, knocking, you know, get the hell out, you know, or whatever, you know. And so I don't know. I guess I'm at a standstill emotionally. Physically, I'm still cleaning up, but I can't seem to make any plans. Not that I want to build anything or expand, or just to go on living, I guess. Really, I don't know.
I got a few questions. I talked to Travis today. Mayor Johnson, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Mayor Johnson invited me kind of at the last minute, so thank you for us. So I guess I have a few questions. You know, if these could be answered maybe by next month. Is that how this works, or do we?
We'll see what the questions
Okay,
are, and
okay.
if we don't get them answered, then
So
we'll
I
take it
guess
under consideration.
Travis was mentioning that, you know, it's in a floodplain, obviously, and the city of Wahoo is trying to enforce FEMA rules. Okay, so I guess, you know, after talking to John, there wasn't any, you know, federal codes or city no statutes or nothing, no ordinances. So I guess that would be the first thing is, you know, what law are you guys citing? And then the next thing would be, you know, how did the city determine the damage assessment? Did they just walk around the building? Did you let them in?
No,
So if they didn't go in the house, how can they, you know, value the home damage, you know, over 50% of what it's valued? 'Cause my understanding is it's valued at $79,000 and the damage assessment is $62,000. So that would be, you know, another question. And then, is the assessed value for this, you know, value, is it the dwelling, or is it the land and the dwelling? You know, where we need the 50% rule. And then, you know, really the last thing is, you know, what does John need to do to keep his house? If it's, you know, maybe getting another quote, you know, for damage assessment to keep it under that 50%, then, you know, maybe let's try to do that so, you know, we don't get any bad media in here, you know, for the city.
Yeah, I don't want to expect the city, not my expectations to see money from the city, you know. I'd rather not, I'd rather stay there, but maybe there's some funds for relocation if I do gotta move. I haven't heard anything about that, but I would just soon stay right where I'm at, you know. I really would.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
I'll respond a little bit. Travis and I met with the victim in the old council chambers, and that's where I was informed that there was more than 50% damage to the house. And from that point on, then Mr. Sutton got involved. He called me. We chatted a little bit. I visited a little bit with Melissa. There's really nothing the city can do. There's been declarations of flood damage, but not for one isolated incident. If I understand it, it's got to be kind of like what Elkhorn hit. There's a whole city blocks of it type thing. when we talked yesterday, he says, well, what committee was this go under? And I said, well, Mr. Beavers is part of, or the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Committee, and they will meet in a couple weeks. But he said, is there any other group? And I said, well, council meets tonight, and prior to the meeting, we have open mic. So that's why they are here. I did see today when I came in at the dumpster there, you're cleaning out the basement, is that what? Yeah.
Yeah, so part of this too is Thursday, you know, we assembled an effort to help John clean out his basement, to, you know, really clean it out, clean the sheetrock out. I mean, there's lots of houses around that probably flood all the time with different events, but, you know, nobody's knocking on their doors telling them they gotta get out. So that's kind of more of a fact finding tonight, like, you know, why this time? He's lived there 15 years. He's indicated it flooded before, and yet, you know, why are we singling him out?
Yeah, and I don't know the situation specifically, so I can't speak to that. I'm assuming what we're dealing with is two regulations. One being the city of Wahoo, pursuant to being within the regulatory floodway or floodplain, is obligated in order to adhere to FEMA regulations. And so what happens is, let's say you want to build up a berm in a floodplain designated area, whether it's a floodway or a flood bridge. You want to build up a berm, you have to provide engineered diagrams and assessments. The city of Wahoo then provides that to the state floodplain manager through the Department of Natural Resources. They then look at it and say yes or no. The city can or can't approve that particular modification within the regulatory floodway. And so everything's run through the state, and then ultimately they're the technical resource. They're the one that tell the city yes or no on things. I think that's one thing that's going on here. I think the second thing it sounds like is when you have a property that, when it was first constructed, conformed to all of the various regulations, whether that be zoning regulations, building code regulations, floodplain management regulations, but then a regulation later was created or exists, you're under our regulations is considered a grandfathered non-conforming use, meaning it can stay as is, it can be used as is. There's a provision though in our regulations, in our zoning regulations, that talk about loss of grandfathered status, and that regulation says if a building is dilapidated and or destroyed by more than 50%, you lose your grandfather non-conforming status. So I'm guessing that's the regulation that's at play here, and the assessment that's having to be done, both with the city having to work with Department of Natural Resources and FEMA with respect to those regulations, as well as the assessment of grandfathered status and whether it is or hasn't been lost.
And I think that's the key is, you know, what is the definition of assessed value? Is it with the county? Is that, you know, land plus building, or is it just a dwelling? And then really, you know, does it, you know, how do we come up with that damage assessment price?
Yeah, the way the regulations read, again, I can't speak to your situation. The regulations read that it's the non-conforming structure itself. So if, as an example, the whole property, from the four corners of the boundary was non-compliant for some reason, like as an example, it's a commercial use in a residential area. Well, then you would be looking at the four corners of the boundaries of the lot itself, because the whole property is non-compliant, right? But in a situation where it's a singular structure that's non-compliant, you would only look to the pre and post value of that structure. And the city, by default, always just says, okay, what is the assessed value of that structure before, and what is the assessed value of the structure after? And there's, of course, always a logical debate of what was it worth before, what is it worth now? And that's presumably where the dialogue needs to happen on that. But by default, we always just say, the assessor comes and they value things, we're gonna go by the assessed value.
So yeah, we just need to really, you know, come up with a regulation, maybe get another, you know, damage assessment, you know, really dig in the weeds and figure out what we gotta do to keep John in his house. So.
Okay. Melissa, do you have anything?
No, I will just say I jotted down your questions, and I will make sure that at our next council meeting, either Travis or I will be here to talk about his assessment, how he determined the values, because I do know that he worked with a specialist from the Department of Natural Resources from the state to help him determine these factors.
Yeah, yeah, they walked around the house. I was there that day. You just walked around the house and that's it. Then walk in the house, in the door, in the basement, upstairs, looked in the window.
And that's why I will make sure that we have the information for you to hear at the next.
I'd rather have a
meeting.
thorough, inspection and show me what's the damage, I don't know.
Our next meeting will be the second Tuesday in August.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Anybody else in the audience want to speak to something that's not on the agenda? Okay, we will move forward. Department report.
Okay, the top of my report here is just a brief rundown of some of the meetings that I attended. On the 1st of July, if you recall, last summer I had the opportunity to participate in a exchange through the Nebraska City Managers program, which didn't cost the city anything. It was my own vacation time, but I got to go to Norway and participate in that exchange. And this summer, there's a Norwegian delegation that's actually coming to Nebraska. It's August 24th through the 31st, and so we had a program planning session for that. And they're going to be flying into Omaha, doing some things at UNO and Creighton. Then Wednesday afternoon is the day that I'm kind of in charge of some of the program. Wednesday afternoon, I don't believe it'll be here in Wahoo. I think we're talking about Ashland and kind of covering maybe a little bit of the history of public power in Nebraska, that utilities and the green initiatives are very big in Norway, and so I think that's something they'd be interested in. Then Thursday, Friday, they'll be in Lincoln, and Saturday they will fly back home. So July 11th, we had a meeting with the Hoffman family regarding annexation along North Chestnut Street, and based on that conversation, I am moving forward with requesting a plat, working to get a plat and a legal description and hopefully a petition for annexation. So that is still moving forward, and we hope to have that maybe on the next agenda. North Highlands Phase 2 construction update meeting. I'll just kind of the status update on that. On the agenda, there is a change order for the parking spaces for the park, Highlands Park, which is on the north side of the water tower. The original change order came in with the installation of sidewalk and all of the pavement marking and signage, and we kind of pared that back a little bit because it's likely that as the park is being developed and stuff installed, that there'll be some damage to the sidewalk. So I think that city crews or the contractor that we hire to do the park work will probably handle all of that. They estimate road construction will be starting in August. They didn't say what time frame in August, but August. I met with Brandon Lavallee regarding traffic patterns around the Wahoo Public Schools with the new addition. I attended a training session from ICMA. The downtown water main project is progressing as expected. There's not really, I don't have a lot because I'm not very hands-on on that project, but I would like to call to your attention that if any of you have downloaded the We Are Wahoo app that the Chamber of Commerce has promoted, doesn't cost you anything. You go to your app store, download it. If you click on the events under that listing, and then under events, there is the downtown water project. That will actually link you to the city's website. There's a brief overview of the project, and then there's a monthly update. The map of the project area is on there. And then I believe Ryan and his team are doing some additional individual one-on-one conversations as the project progresses through the downtown area. I'll be following the legislative if the governor is successful in calling for a special session, I'll be following that and try to share with you the potential impacts that the change in the property taxes may have on the city. I know one thing that Stuart had asked me about. On July 14th, the Wahoo Historic Auto Tour car show was held in downtown Wahoo. The organizer reported there were about 45 entries. The city street department did have an entry. They put in their newest snowplow truck, and some of our city street crew attended, and from the photos that I saw, they looked like they had a good time and they were well received, and they won an award, kids' favorite award. So that's fun. And I really want to commend Joe and the crew members that actually attended, because that was on their own time representing the city. And so I really appreciate their efforts in trying to, in the PR effort with the community. There was some questions that came up and some conversations around how that event was set up and when streets were shut down. So it's my understanding, again, I didn't attend the event, but it's my understanding that Beach, Linden, and Broadway streets were completely shut down. And I know there was some concerns about how that was done in comparison to the other events that have been proposed in the downtown area. There's a couple things that I would call to your attention. First off, this was on a Sunday afternoon, so it was not in direct competition with any of the other business traffic in the area. Second of all, again, I didn't attend, so I'm taking this as what I was told, but the actual intersections of like 5th and Broadway and 5th and Linden were not completely blocked off with displays. They were simply roped off, so if emergency vehicles needed to get through that intersection, the rope could have been dropped and the emergency vehicles gone through the intersection. But lastly, I think it's good to point out that we are reviewing our approval process internally to make sure that all event permits are handled the same way, whether it's on a Sunday afternoon or on a Saturday morning, so that so there is some room for us to improve. Did I address your questions, Stuart? Okay. Last, I'm excited to report that the permit was pulled for the project at 1268 North Locust, and we were told that the roof, they're going to be starting in August with installation of a new roof, and that is the South Hall project on the Kennedy campus. So, any other questions?
I know K2 has been good to work with. They are fully aware we have a parade next week, and we'll work to get things opened up.
Yes, I did not attend
That way.
I did not attend the project update meeting that they held today, but I am 100% certain that that topic was covered. It was covered the last meeting that we had, and we explained that there are a lot of people in town, and they assured us that there would be, you're gonna have metal panels over holes, you're gonna see probably snow fence around some of the areas that are open, but safety was emphasized a lot with that. So it may be, we may go take a walk around on that Thursday afternoon just to make sure that we're satisfied with, yeah.
Early afternoon.
Yeah,
Just people start showing up out there out for, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Okay, consent agenda. Mostly routine items on that. Any questions?
So did we do an updated claims? That's the one that triple, or the
Yes.
3/4? Okay. I never looked at the new one. Yes, I would make a motion to accept the consent agenda, especially with warrant for
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions? Roll call on accepting the consent agenda.
Creachy,
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Warford.
Yes.
Okay, public hearing and associated action items. The first one is a public hearing on an application, oops, I moved down. On an application for a planned unit development, PUD, for Lot 2, Sycamore Hills, second edition, as submitted by JEO Development, in consideration of approval of the application. we know you, but sign in.
Will do. Thank you. Kevin Anderson here representing JEO Investments, 1937 North Chestnut.
We'll let him make the presentation, and then we'll open up the comments to the public.
Okay. So as you'll recall, when adopting the planned unit development, or PUD, as a zoning district, we did so as an overlay, meaning that the PUD elements that allow for additional flexibility on top of an existing zoning district essentially creates opportunities to work within areas like setbacks, parking, various elements that keeps the underlying uses in place. So what's in place and allowed by right or conditionally through your existing zoning remains in place. What the PUD, when layered on top of that existing zoning, has allowed for the ability to play with setbacks, parking, whatever it may be, access requirements, to help in a number of scenarios. Most notably, physically or environmentally constrained sites. It can be a fantastic redevelopment tool because it allows for that element of flexibility in working hand in hand with city, with the Planning Commission, and with City Council to address city priorities, community priorities, as well as established development goals from the developer standpoint as well. I see it as a very much more transparent process in that what you are approving is a site plan associated with that PUD. Any variation to that site plan of any significance, usually a few percentage points on things like density, parking, intensity of use, it comes back through Planning Commission and City Council for additional public hearings. So interested public stakeholders, neighbors know exactly what's going in place when it's first being contemplated and when it's adopted. And any variation of that of significance goes back through a public hearing process. So there's a level of confidence that what you see is what you're going to get in the future as a as a project develops out. So it's a really good phasing tool for development as well, because you as City Council and Planning Commission, they approve that site plan. And so regardless of how long it takes, within reason, as established within the PUD regulations, that's what it's going to look like in phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, unless the developer comes back for amendments to that PUD plan and that site plan. So what we're proposing at 23rd, in between 20th and 23rd and Chestnut, just north of our existing office building, and what's just shy of a 4.5 acre lot, are 4 subdivided lots of what we're proposing a office use. So a 4 office use with associated structures within that. And then I'll walk you through kind of what we're utilizing the PUD tool to ask for and what it will ultimately look like. But you're getting 4 commercial lots with an intended office use just over 1 acre apiece. And what we'll utilize that PUD to do is essentially 3 asks for the use of the flexibility associated with that PUD tool. The first being access. So where you see 4 distinct lots and 4 structures, we're condensing that to 1 access point off of Chestnut. That will help protect the safety and function of Chestnut Street itself, but also our side streets as well. We mentioned the traffic patterns around the school. The more, it was a priority to stay off and reduce any access points off of 23rd, in large part because of that, but also just because of the layout of the site and the grading. Where we could get an access to the north on 23rd would be too close to the intersection of 23rd and Chestnut. So we wanted to avoid that. Same goes for 20th and Chestnut. Where the access point would want to be is far too close to Chestnut for both function of ingress egress within the site itself and other adjoining sites. And that's large part because of the drainage, the natural drainage of the site itself. All that's going to want to flow to the southwest. So that's where obviously we're proposing stormwater detention. So, you know, to tuck anything either on the north side or the south side, tuck any access point to the west is kind of going against where that stormwater is going to want to go. So we want to hold it there in that southwest corner of the site so that it can slowly disperse out down our drainage way. Our second ask and use of the PUD tool is relaxation of parking standards. What we're proposing is the current zoning for the office use calls for a one parking stall for every 200 square feet of office uses. What we're asking for is a reduction of that of about 30% to one to every 300 square feet of office use. And we're doing that through a mechanism of essentially an owners association that's going to grant access and parking easements across all lots. So all of those users are going to be sharing those parking stalls as laid out there on that site. And that's protected through covenants and those easements. Those covenants lay out that they will be sharing parking and none will be dedicated to any one site. With an office use, you can typically get away with that because you have differing peak hours amongst office uses. And as we work with potential users to the site, that will be commonly known, and we'll work to kind of curate the development so that we can offset those peak parking needs of some of those users. But I'll go ahead and venture our office usage in our parking lot as kind of an example. We are parking at that 1 to 200 square feet ratio in terms of the number of stalls we have at JEO. But we're a little unique in that we've got a pretty significant fleet of company trucks, trailers, whatever it might be, that essentially takes up the whole southern row of our lower parking lot. You remove those from our parking equation, we're getting pretty close to that 1 to 200 or 1 to 300 parking ratio that we're requesting for this. And as long as I've been there and we've been in that new office, I can't name a time where we've needed excess parking, where we have been able to park our own employees and visitors within our two lots within that. So that's kind of at least some of the basis of where we think that parking ratio makes a lot of sense, and that we can get users to share those parking stalls to offset peak times. Excuse me. And then our third request for the use of the PUD tool is on stormwater detention. We are approaching this on a regional standpoint, and that all four of these are going to share a common stormwater detention pond. Where if this were a traditional zoning or traditional proposal based off of our current zoning, each one of those lots would have its own stormwater detention. So we're just combining those into a singular, platting that as an outlot, and that's protected by the covenants to be maintained by an owners association. Similar to a neighborhood owners association, we're going to have a property owners association associated with this that's going to maintain that stormwater detention. It's going to maintain all the common areas, the green space and landscaping, as well as the parking lot. So the covenants established within that establishes that owners association and the responsibilities to take on all of that maintenance. We have a stormwater drainage report submitted along with the application. What that shows is, it's certainly that it meets the city stormwater regulations, but in practice, what it shows is with our management of stormwater runoff, it has we show that it does not increase flows outside of our project area. In fact, it successfully contains, I'm sorry. Been fighting this cough, and I was afraid this was going to happen, so I'll shut up soon and save my voice for any questions. But in a lot of areas, and in a lot of our, there you go, we got it up on the screen. in our higher or more significant rain events, it does a really effective job within those 20-year and 100-year events of improving not only meeting our requirements, but significantly improving over what's in place currently. So I'll leave it at that and save my voice for any questions. Thank you for your time.
This is a public hearing, so is there any comments from the public?
I would like to, I'm Brian Holmes. Everybody's got to remember that this project here is going to affect the area that we've been talking about. And I know they said it's a detention pond there and everything else, but you know, it's going to run off faster and it's going to come out of there faster, just like any other pavement. You know, dirt slows it down, you know. So before you guys vote on this, just remember, everybody, that this is an ongoing issue, and I think you guys got to look at this and determine what to do before you approve this, so that way it doesn't affect everybody downstream also.
The drainage is
So-
to the southwest corner, correct, is what you said in your,
Yeah.
which is our problem corner. Okay, okay, just wanna make sure.
So I just want everybody to look at that before you guys vote on this, because it's just going to create more issues down the road. You know, I know it's a good plan and everything, but still, you got water issues. You know, we can't dump any more water in where we're at. We can't afford that. Nobody can down there. I mean, I don't know if anybody went down there just recently, but from the last storm, there's probably a hole just right, if you go down Chestnut there's a hole right there by the bridge right there, and it's probably 20 foot wide, and it's probably 6 foot wide, and it's probably 10 feet deep. And it washed it out because it just swirled in there, and it's just gonna keep eating that away because it can't get underneath that bridge fast enough. So there's a big hole there, and it's just gonna keep going if you keep dumping more water into this area. You know, to me, it should go on the other side. They should pipe it on the other side of Chestnut. You know, get the water out of there. We don't need any more water. So,
Can you pull up those numbers of the drainage again, where the 100 years seem to be our? It's further up.
No, I think this
See, I'm
is
looking at the
comparison of
page.
existing and proposed
Right there,
peak
that's the
flow
one I was
rates.
just looking at, where it's actually, according to the math, even though there's concrete with the detention pond, the next page down, I think was the one that I was looking at, where it's actually saying, right there, the difference is we're slowing the water in a 2-year event, we're slowing it even better in a 10-year event, and making a huge impact in the 100-year event. So even though there's more concrete, the detention pond says this will actually help your problem, not hurt. The whole project is saying, as the rain comes in faster, it's slowing the water down. And again, engineers, I don't know, but that's what we're saying. Am I misreading that?
well, that's what we thought of north too. I mean, that one went over, and that was only like a 4-inch rain, and that went over that retention pond. How are you gonna contain a 4-inch rain in a pond like that? That's you know,
Don't know.
if it's gonna overflow, it's not gonna do any good.
How long, the detention, how soon does it start releasing? And how fast does it release so the other water has a chance to go down?
Yeah, so it will hold the water. It will hold a cubic foot of water for 5 minutes, and then release that over a 5-minute period for each cubic foot.
So how does it do that? You got a gate on there that opens it up every 5 minutes?
Just based off of the depth of that detention pond and the piping associated with that, with how it releases. As that fills up, it will then, reach the elevation of our drainage pipes shown there on the southwest corner, at which it'll, based off of the width of the pipe, circulate out and slow down the flow of this 4.5 acres into the drainage area to the west. So that's the intention of stormwater detention, is to slow down, not contain and hold in perpetuity, but to slow down the flow, to avoid those peak rushes once you get rainwater events. But table 5 shows the conditions and what we're engineered up to for the improvement of existing conditions for 2-year, 10-year, and 100-year events. So you can see a pretty nominal improvement on a 2-year event. Where you really see significant improvement are 10-year events and above, up to 100-year events, where you're getting over 50% improvement of some of those flow rates.
And so, to meet our current requirements, the existing at 599, 14.88, and 28.18, proposed with detention, it would need to be at that level or better, right? So if it was neutral, it would still meet our requirements, and this is going further than that, significantly on the 10 and 100 year.
And in part because the stormwater detention is somewhat overbuilt for the uses and impervious area that we're showing. And that's to be honest, to give ourselves a little grace in case we get users that want either larger buildings or more parking. And if that's the case, again, we are back in front of Planning Commission, we are back in front of this body if that differs of any significance. So at that point, this report will be updated, and you'll see the real world data of how any changes to that reflects on stormwater requirements associated with the project. And to me, that's the beauty of a PUD tool. So.
And for transparency's sake, I think to answer Brian's question, if there's a significant enough rainfall event, you're not purporting that this would hold and provide capacity for it. It may overtop the detention area. Depending on how large the event is, it only has certain benefits. It'll stop in terms of its benefits.
Yeah, we're designed to the 100-year event. Anything above that, I couldn't stand here. We could get the information, but I couldn't stand here and tell you what that level is by which we then, eclipse our capacity and it starts draining out. So.
Question I have is, on the water study, is that done by JEO?
That's correct, yeah.
So we're, nothing against JEO, but we're taking JEO's water study to do a benefit of JEO properties to do that. Does that seem like a conflict to anybody else?
I understand that, and I think that's why it came forward from the Planning Commission with a recommendation that this study be reviewed and the plans be reviewed by an outside party, both before construction as well as after construction.
And that's not uncommon at all, and yeah, we
I'm just talking.
be in complete support of that.
What we're talking about, where we're talking about, and everything else. I mean,
There's a second set of eyes, and I think that would be the contingency. You would approve it subject to a second set of eyes.
When would the second set of eyes take a look at this then? After we vote?
Before and after construction.
Pre and post, yeah, but after you vote, yes.
Where are we at with Joe's proposed changes? Did he get in there and excavate any of that in that area?
I guess I am not, Joe's currently on paternity leave, so I'm not certain what exactly he had laid out for there. I know that Brian has been successful in getting some of the service lines relocated. I had a conversation with Lalit. We're intending to apply for some hazard mitigation funds again. We're putting in but it's our intent to apply. As for what Joe is specifically doing, I don't know what those are.
Has there been work?
Nothing.
But I did get the electrical lines exposed, where they're dug down, and that one right there by the culvert that we were all worried about is 5 foot filled in.
Yeah,
You know,
so,
but, you know, 20 years ago, we didn't have all this development up there, and it could handle 6, 7 inches of rain back when it was dug out. And now we're just adding to this, we just keep adding and adding and adding, and it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse.
I'm very fearful to hear that that's supposed to go to the southwest corner where that's exactly where our issue lies. I mean, that is terrifying.
So I want to make sure I'm understanding as well as maybe, I'm going to walk through this as I understand it. The application of what we're working on today is turning this into a PUD as opposed to traditional zoning regulations, right? So let's say we don't move forward with creating this PUD. What we've got left is 4 lots that are going to require more concrete. So if we don't make a PUD out of it, the lots are still going to be able to be sold and built on without our approval because the zoning regs are already in place. So somebody wants to build, they're automatically going to be granted access based on current zoning regulations without the PUD, which means there's going to be more concrete for driveways because they have to all have their own driveways. There's going to be more concrete for parking because they all have to meet individual parking requirements. So in other words, if we don't turn it into a PUD, what we've got is 4 commercial lots that are still for sale that are going to require more concrete that don't have to come back to the city for approval. Am I missing anything there?
They would still have to adhere to subdivision regulations, but you're right, which is that the
As long as they
subdivision
adhere to those
regulations
regulations.
technically say that under this design, as an example, that just has to be a 0.
Right.
It doesn't have to be better or improving, it has to show 0, and we have to approve it as is.
Right, and again, I'm thinking from the way that he keeps saying, more concrete is bad, no matter what our detention says, more concrete is bad. My point is, if we don't do it as a PUD, it's going to have more concrete. You still have 4 lots that are gonna get sold. And at that point, we don't have a mechanism to slow it down, because as long as they're meeting those regulations, as you pointed out several times, if you're meeting regulations, we have to grant the building permit. That's just how it works. We don't stop that. So without creating something like this, again, I feel like we leave it open for bigger problems. I feel like creating the PUD is still the best way to mitigate the problems and give us what science is telling us is the best way to handle it.
I think we know that science isn't, it doesn't add up, you know? I mean, look at the north, look up north. That was supposed to hold all of that whole area up there, and it doesn't. So how is this detention pond gonna hold anything?
The area up north is supposed to hold the drainage that comes from the islands this way. Not
It
everything
doesn't,
flows
though.
into
I
that
witnessed,
section.
I went and I saw it. It was going over the top of it.
Well, and that's why I asked that question. It's only supposed to hold what previously it would hold, right? So again, it's not supposed to prevent a flood. It's not supposed to hold an unlimited amount of capacity. And that's why I asked the question, to make sure we're all clear here that this detention area isn't purporting to completely prevent flooding in your area from these lots. It's simply required to hold the amount of water it would have when it was grass. That's all that our subdivision requirements require a developer to do, is hold the same amount of water that it would have held when it was grass.
See, how can you dump that water into something that isn't even there? All you're worried about is that area, and that is it. It's just the same as up north. All you're worried about is just that area. That's all the engineers look at. They don't look downstream at all.
No, and they don't, and you're absolutely right. But we also can't require that a developer, on any development, to hold or to improve a watershed issue, right? I know certainly, I understand where you're coming from, which is you want either nothing to happen and or it to fix the problem.
We don't want to add to the problem.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This, under the engineering, and I'm not an engineer, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but this is saying it's going to improve, not hurt your situation. I don't know if that's true, but that's what the engineering says.
But look at the rainfall.
Yeah.
You know, the rainfall's getting worse and worse and worse. Everybody knows that, everybody sees it. We're not getting 2-inch rains anymore, we're getting 3 to 4 inch rains every time now.
And I think the problem fundamentally is, and I understand where you're coming from, you don't believe that the engineering, you don't believe the science. And what we're saying is, other than a third-party review of the science, that's all we can ask for as a city. If the science from 2 confirming engineering departments, one of which we would hire through an independent review, says that it's going to improve the situation, we're not in a position to refute that. Unless somebody presents evidence to the contrary, another engineer says they're both wrong. And that's the dilemma. I understand your skepticism, but the problem for us as a city is one engineer says it's going to improve the situation, not prevent, but improve. Another reviewer says it's going to improve, not prevent. And we're taking that as being true.
Their check would be to validate or verify whether or not this drainage study meets the requirements of our subdivision regulations. That's what a third-party review would do.
Yeah, and they'd recheck all the math and make sure that what JO did is they didn't fudge the numbers and they didn't make it appear as if it's better than it is. And I certainly do think as part of your approval, you ought to require that third-party review.
Well, as GAO, I would think that they can look right out their window when it rains 4 inches and look at that going, geez, we better not add to the problem.
That's what we're saying.
They're claiming they're helping.
Says it's not adding to the problem, it's helping the problem.
And you don't believe that to be true, and I understand why you don't believe it to be true, but that's what they're telling us, that's what the engineering's telling us.
So in order to correct it, because the rainfalls are getting heavier per event, what would have to happen? The standards change so that we change the 5-year, 10-year, 100-year, so require more?
Yeah,
But that would have to be nationwide, or not nationwide.
it would have to
but
be citywide.
Citywide.
Yes, we could change the subdivision regulations to require a greater degree of surface water retention in all subdivisions within
Okay.
the city, whether it be housing developments, commercial developments, or otherwise. We could do that.
The city can do
The
it
city
myself.
could, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Now, what you're not allowed to do it is you're not allowed to do it after the fact. You're not allowed to take an application, stall the application, and then adopt those regulations. When the application, the idea conceptually is when the application is submitted, it freezes in time what the regulations are for that application, right? So even that situation, if the planning commission would want to investigate, do they want to citywide adopt stricter regulations? They certainly could, but I don't think it would affect this particular application.
Council, any more questions?
Yeah, I've got a question that's not related to water. Parking in PUDs. So, we were given a proposal on the footprints was subject to change. The footprints of the 4 structures, will that be all rent to own, or that will be controlled under the same entity?
To be honest, we're open to anything, both, selling lots for individual ownership, at which point, through covenants, they're still part of the association and all of that. But at the same time, we're just as open to owning the whole thing and renting the square footage in the property as well.
Helping me to understand how the PUD works then as far as parking. So everybody's basically a homeowners association or their covenants, and you sell one of the structures to somebody else. They decide to sell and that use changes. How do you control that situation? If that use changes that potentially needs more parking, they have to come back within the covenants? Is that controls? Or how? To me, I'm looking 10 years down the road to say, okay, this is up, this is running, the footprints are in place, potentially the use is still office, but it has a heavier use. It needs some more parking.
Mhm.
How do you control that?
Yeah, so the covenants address that to some extent, in that there is an association and that they do have the ability to, a limited ability to kind of approve new users and certainly new parking counts or something like that. But really it's in place for the ongoing maintenance of the common areas, parking, landscaping, whatever it might be. You know, a change of use in the future is a change to the PUD plan.
Okay.
So we're back here, whether it's 5, 10, 15 years from now, you know, us or a new owner of a lot or something is back here in front of Planning Commission and City Council, looking for an amendment to the PUD plan, for a, you know, more intensive use, that may require more parking or more strain on current parking, traffic flows within our one access point. Those are all areas that you would want to take a look at. Exactly. Exactly. So, but you're right. There may be a point where JEO is no longer an owner of any of these and no longer has any ties to that. And that's kind of why those controls are in place, so that it can't at some point be all retail with intensive traffic and parking needs and all of that without first having come back through public hearings and getting that amendment for the PUD plan. But in the future, those are the exact questions that you'll want to ask for those kind of uses. You know, what's the impact of parking? What's the impact of traffic? And all of that. So, yeah.
Well, through normal daily use, if there was overflow parking, where does that go? You can't go out on Chestnut. I mean, if the lot's full.
As the only adjacent neighbor right now, I could tell you where it probably might want to look to go. So, you know, we're kind of going to this with an understanding a bit of that as well, knowing that we're probably going to, for the time being, be the most impacted.
Well, I do like the way that the PUD works, and that you've got one entrance. At one time, it had always been talked about as service entrance, which just eats up ground. You're allowing, you know, the sharing of parking, which reduces the concrete, which reduces the outflow. I mean, if there's something that belongs in that site, it's this design.
Yeah, and you know, you bring up a good point, you know, service access, that sort of thing. That's, I think that's another reason why office use is a good use here, in that, you know, you have lower service needs in terms of delivery trucks, trash trucks, you know, for these smaller buildings. We think, you know, that could just be a wheeled cart rather than a large dumpster where you need to get that kind of, that access for trash and things like that, so.
And I believe I know this, but I want to make sure I understand as well. You mentioned the PUD sounds like a homeowners association or similar to a homeowners association. There's no point at which JEO doesn't own it anymore, and these 4 owners all get together and say they want to dissolve the PUD. Like, that's not a thing they can just get rid of down the road and get rid of the covenants or anything like that.
Correct, yeah. And as the city, you'll want those controls to ensure that it's going to be maintained and all of that.
They couldn't all get together and be like, you know what, forget the covenant, we want to change all this.
Right.
That's not,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and
So
conceptually, the idea, sorry, Melissa.
No,
Conceptually, the idea of the PUD is the normal developer would sell the 4 individual lots, would establish the HOA, and then they walk away from the project. And then if one of those individual lots said, I want to use it as a meeting hall, then the onus is on them, not the original developer, to come in and make application to amend the PUD so that they can now double they can use it as a meeting hall. And then we say, well, you need twice as much collective parking if you're gonna do that. And so we say, where's that parking gonna be? They're gonna have to put a plan together. And we, with that individual lot owner who's making an application to amend the PUD, have to say yay or nay on that. Or does the detention area have to be expanded because the building structure is larger than is proposed, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And it'll be on a lot owner by lot owner basis to amend that PUD.
so if this were approved going forward, it wouldn't be just C3 zoning, it'd be C3 zoning with a PUD overlay, so. That controls those uses.
Is there any requirements for green space in a PUD?
There can be, yes.
There can be.
Yes, there can be. That can, and often is, a stipulation placed by Planning Commission or City Council. Certainly, in this particular scenario, you know, we've got the design overlay that regulates and encourages that level of green space. So That's what we have designed to meet in terms of the amount of landscaping required based off of the design overlay along the Chestnut corridor. So, the city has that mechanism in place for green
And
space.
again, something you've already probably said 3 times, I wanna make sure I'm understanding that as well. If you said, you know what, that building isn't we wanna make that one just a little bit bigger, after today, you'd still have to come back through the city council to make even that building bigger.
Yeah, and I think it's anything above 5% enlargement of the building, may even be less than that.
So we know right now there's that much green space already, and if you wanted to make it any less, you'd have to come back and.
Yeah, and your design overlay sets your, say your planting requirement based off of your square footage of your frontage. So if that changes, your landscape plan is gonna have to change as well.
How can you just change a zone? If it's zone whatever, how can you add PUD to the top of the zoning? I don't
It's an
understand.
additional
If it's zone
restriction.
something, it's gotta stay that zone.
It is. It does stay, whether it's commercial or residential, it stays that as an underlying zoning in terms of what it can be used for. But on top of that is an additional restriction. We put a PUD on top of it, just like we have the Chestnut Overlay District that says if you're gonna build properties along Chestnut, it's zoned one way, but you also have additional beautification requirements where you have to have a certain amount of landscaping, and it's just more expensive to build in those areas because we have an overlay district that overlays that zoning classification. So it's, in essence, it's 2 kinds of zoning. It's one for the use.
For that?
Yes, it's zoned commercial. And so if a normal developer came in without a PUD, they would say, it's zoned commercial, this proposal meets a use that's commercial, and we want to carve it into 4 lots, and here's how we're gonna carve it into 4 lots. And to Carl's earlier point, here's the parking for this lot, and then this lot, and this lot. Here's a small detention cell for each individual lot, and they could do that. And we would have to approve it that way with no overlay. The idea of the PUD is we can reduce the amount of total parking because we're allowing them to combine the parking. We can add criteria and have them overbuild the stormwater retention like they are right here is proposing. We can do all those things on top of what our subdivision regulations require. And so the idea of a PUD is there's give and take. There's give in terms of the city's giving flexibility to a developer to do things, and there's take in that the city can ask for things that otherwise it wouldn't with a normal subdivision application. And I think that's part of the give and the take here was with the planning commission alike of, hey, we have concerns about the drainage issue, thus the oversizing and overbuilding of the retention area to address some of that give and take.
Brian, do you see that helps you?
You know, at this point, no.
No, that was really scary to hear the southwest corner. I just keep going back to that. Like,
But
that's
what's
where
there
it's going.
now is supposedly, and that's where we'll make sure that this does not impact people downstream. And I believe the proposal in front of us is designed to mitigate that as much as possible.
Yeah, but look what it's supposed to hold. It's just the same as what's up north. It's not any different.
They're not responsible for
regulations.
rain. We can't make them responsible for a 10-inch rain.
That's where maybe the city should look at it and say, look, maybe we should look at this and bump it up, because we know that it's gonna be more than a 4-inch rain, 100-year, whatever that is. I mean, I know we can't control the weather, but we can control the regulations that we put in place.
You know, with the math that we've been talking about with the science, and if we move forward, we have some double checking to make sure that the math actually has a smaller impact than what you're seeing today. Find that hard to argue.
I'm curious about what it is about the southwest corner that scares you.
Because I pointed at them.
That's right.
That's where it's got to come. I mean, that's the low end. I mean, that's how water works, right? It's gonna drain from the low
Right.
end, not from the high end.
That's
how
where
it has
it's
to work.
it's where it's going
And
now.
That's
Right.
natural, that's how it's flowing.
And our pond
That's
there,
how it's
yes, that's where it is because that's where the flow from the site goes. But
Right.
that pond slows down. It's solely
My part of
designed
it
to
does
slow that
too.
down.
So, yeah.
Kevin, do you have that picture, or is it in the drainage study that shows, okay, maybe
it'll be built down like, so
Right, so
it's
this-
creating a bit of a hole is what the idea is, so that it can hold capacity up until a point when then it gets discharged out of the pipe, right? And then it's supposed to, because it is holding a certain amount of capacity and then discharging out of the pipe, it's supposed to slow down the flow. So again, transparency, I think everybody's acknowledging this is not designed to prevent any of your flooding problems. It's just designed to be a little better than what it is right now when it's a grass field. That's, again, for transparency, I think that's all that this is saying. It's gonna be a little better than it is now when it's a grass field.
Yeah, we're essentially digging a 1 acre hole to hold 4.5 acres worth of water.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about 4.5 acres, which has, what, 38% if I saw it coverage, so we're talking about a total coverage of that 4.5 acres being somewhere near 2 acres of that is gonna be covered, compared to what we're in the whole entire drainage area that we're talking about, it's gotta be
There's no
a few
control.
hundred acres, right? We're talking, and it's supposed to make that one, so I don't imagine it's gonna have any impact at all, better or worse, being only 2 acres of what we're talking about. But for that 2 acres, it's supposed to be better.
It's supposed to.
It's actually better, that is better than what the North Highlands is, because that pond up there is 3.5 acres. So you figure that, 3.5 acres for that whole development, and now you're looking at 1 acre pond for 4 acres.
Well, but
This
that's
was a
also-
zero,
that's
so-
also not
No,
4
I'm
acres
saying that
total.
this is
Yeah.
better.
And that's part of the PUD, the idea is, and I think the planning commission had that conversation with JO of, with a normal subdivision application, it just has to read 0. It can't make the situation worse. And that's what North Highlands did, is they met the base subdivision
But how
regulations
come
to
they
show
think it's
0.
only a 3 acre pond compared to an acre pond?
Well, because this is oversized. Because the PUD, they're giving more detention than they would
It might-
otherwise be required to.
Be the depth also.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe shallow.
Yeah. But I do think when we looked at it, that North Highlands Engineering, their design was, it was 0. It wasn't improving the situation.
And again, it was 0 at 10 years, and then beyond 10 years.
Yeah, they met the minimum criteria.
Minimum
This
criteria.
is more than the minimum criteria, is what it comes down to. And that's what I think Carl and the company
That's
were
what
trying
I'm
to
trying
say
to
is,
say, like-
this is supposed to help you a little, not a lot. I don't want to misrepresent that.
It's still only
Yeah.
4 acres out of the
Yeah.
whole.
That's what I'm saying, out of hundreds, we're
Watershed.
talking about, where the buildings are going, it's 2 acres that we're impacting, and it's supposed to be better for 2 acres, which you're never gonna see the difference. But the point being, it's better,
Well, and we can also, after this is done, readdress and say we wanna change the regulations to show the minor improvement throughout every area
Yeah.
going forward.
Well, and I don't know if we
So
can
the next
actually
one.
ask that they approve it, but we can ask that it has to meet 100-year standards instead of 10-year standards, is that?
Well, we could also say though, like, if it's
Yeah,
got
we can
grass,
change the criteria.
Right, that's what I'm
Right,
saying.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
But the criteria has to be uniformly applied to all
Right,
properties.
right.
Yeah.
and then
But it
gra-
wouldn't affect this, they've
And
already.
so that's always the deterrent is you're, as a city, and I'm not suggesting one or the other, you're always saying, well, that's helpful over here, but it might slow development over here, right?
Right.
And you're having to balance those things, right?
Will we
Because
get,
we're still in.
Still more
public
questions?
will we get a report from the third party before we give a final permit?
Yeah, I do think we probably need to clarify when that review has to be in hand by.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
And again, understanding that that's before the actual development starts, but the creation of the PUD
That's,
has very little to do with that, and at least we can affect all 4 lots, the entire section at the same time, by creating the PUD and keeping things moving.
Yeah, I would think you'd want that assessment done before somebody's actually digging the,
Right,
Yeah,
before
any
ground
construction.
breaks, right, before
Yeah.
construction, that needs to be done,
before
but
the infrastructure construction's done.
I
That
don't,
review
I
has to
don't
be.
think we make a vote to move forward until we have a third party looking at it. That's my opinion. I won't vote for it.
yeah, I don't see how creating a PUD affects anything in a negative way.
but keep in mind, they have met the standards of today. We're just asking the additional. So whether
We're just
you-
asking if the math is correct, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
If there's another engineering firm that's looking at it outside of GM.
So I think that was a comment in the planning and zoning meeting, which I attended. They meet the standards of a PUD. We're asking, so that could, in my mind, that could be approved, planning and zoning approved it. But they also put the caveat of the third party. So we want to make sure that's in there before we allow any work to be done.
Well, the question before us, which is still in public meeting, is, you know, is this a PUD or not? You know, but if, do we still have questions from the audience, or are we still in public meeting?
Yeah, we can close it whenever and just be council.
I guess if there's no other questions, I make a motion to close the public meeting, the public hearing, excuse me.
Second.
Okay. Roll call on closing the public hearing.
Creachy,
Yes.
Wolford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Raffle,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Okay, now the council can look, have discussion and look at action.
And I guess one of the questions to me is, which item are you placing the contingency against? Are you placing the contingency of third-party review against number one or against number two? There.
So item number one is it's like the zoning change. It's the
Right.
PUD.
It's to create the PUD.
Right.
Oh, really?
Which
And
this
then-
has to have a
Two
variance
is
to
Right.
the
be-
actual replat of it to
Of
these
the
4
product.
lots.
Yes.
Yeah, my assumption is number one
Right.
isn't what's controversial. Number one, in terms of
One.
creating the PUD.
PUD doesn't count as part of this.
It's number two, it's the actual plat, is the question of, are you gonna have the engineering before or after? Basically would be the question for you.
It's gotta happen sooner or later, should happen.
Yeah, I'm okay with it as it stands, so if you guys are hung up, or if there's people that are hung up on it, you're gonna have to let me know where.
I'm okay with one, but I'm not okay with two.
Was that a motion?
Well,
Let's start with.
it's actually, we're just talking about the PUD right now,
Yeah.
because we still have to have a public hearing on the plat.
Plat.
Because, yeah, on the PUD, basically your two options are require somebody, whether it be JO or otherwise, to go through the normal subdivision requirements, or allow them to go through a PUD process, right? And I think generally the whole reason you created the PUD regulations is so you could do this sort of thing. So presumably you've already come to terms with PUDs make sense.
And then for this piece of ground in particular, this makes sense, because it does require less
It's
concrete.
that we want that
Right.
one driveway
That's the
into it,
key there.
Right.
which reduces the amount of concrete,
This is a
reduces
benefit.
access to Chestnut. To me, the PUD makes the most sense in this area.
I would make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
There's been a motion second to approve the application to overlay the PUD on this property. Any comments? Roll call.
Creachy,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Raffle,
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Okay. Number two is to, public hearing on the final plat for the replat of Lot 2 Sycamore Hills, second edition, consideration and approval of final plat. I'll open up the public hearing. Let you speak first, and then we'll go to public, and then we'll go to council.
Just one thing regarding the topic of question and conversation. Kevin Anderson, JO Investments, 1937 North Chestnut. It's our intention to at least start with dirt work on this construction year, which, believe it or not, is quickly getting away from us. So I guess it would be an ask that with the condition of approval, it's worded in a way, and I appreciate that this body meets twice a month. That's not always the case, but that kind of, whether it's a condition of a, grading permit or development permit or what it might be, that would maybe help expedite an approval process if it's placed as a condition of something rather than needing to be done prior to approval of a final plat. So I'll leave it at that and make myself available for any questions.
Public, any comments?
What's the old plan? Like it's a
Uh,
Four
replat?
lot,
Just,
One.
it
Oh, it
was
was all
just
one
one
big
lot.
unit before?
Yes.
yeah, this will go into that. Public, any comments? Council? I guess part of it would be the timing or selection. Maybe suggest Melissa and Travis, and maybe Stuart as president of the council, involved in selecting the third party. For the review.
I would probably use Olson, we've worked with them before,
If you want to name it, and they're,
or Kirk and Michael.
Doesn't matter to me.
you can do that tonight if you,
Okay.
I mean, I haven't spoken with either one of them, but
that's two good ones that are independent, you know.
So maybe it depends on time frame.
Well, we could say either or, who's
Yeah.
available to get to it.
Okay, that's good. That'll move it on.
Hamstrung with
That
one only.
Right.
I don't know if we have to define it in the
Yeah.
motion, just a third party, and then that gives us that flexibility.
Third party.
I mean, it's a math. check.
Certified third party.
I'd be pretty certain that JEO's math is correct, but I understand the need to have it checked out, so.
Just from a cost standpoint, is the only thing we're asking them to analyze is the stormwater detention area, as opposed to paying them to do a full review of?
Well, don't we have to have a third
Plans.
party do a full review before they can start construction anyway? I mean, there's some of that's gotta happen, but before we can start the plat, or before they can do anything, they've gotta have their plat.
Well,
Or
they
am I
have
missing
this,
something?
but in terms of the building permit, normally that doesn't have to need engineering review, right? Somebody comes in, wants to build a commercial building, Travis doesn't have to outsource it to JEO or somebody else to analyze if it meets regs or not.
Yeah,
He can do it himself.
I personally, my only concern is the watershed out of it.
I think our point of contention is the water, so to me, that's all that would need to be reviewed.
you're still in the public hearing. There's-
We're still in public hearing, so we're having, public didn't speak in this hearing, so council continue to speak or call for
I guess
action.
if we don't have any questions, I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. Roll call on closing of the public hearing.
Creachy,
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Nagel,
Yeah.
Sweet,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Okay, now,
Don't go
ready
too
for
fast.
action.
With the
Action
wording of
item
the-
now.
The next,
Well, I think it sounds like you're either A, going to approve the hiring of an independent engineer to review the stormwater detention plans for approval, or you're B, going to approve the final plat contingent on a third-party review before the grading permit is issued.
So can those be in the same motion?
Well, I think
One or
those
the
are two
other.
different things.
That's what I'm wondering.
I think Shane's suggesting the first. The question is, where does the majority of the council sit on that? It's one of those two.
So-
I also am in agreement with Shane. I'd actually like to see some dirt work being done over there close to that southwest corner before we do dirt work for Mr. Anderson to speed that process along. I'd like to see something get done there to see how that helps that water flow. That has nothing to do with the watershed study, I realize. It just, progression.
And my only thing is, with this is, as far as this project goes, is the science correct, is the math correct? Outside of that, letting them move on. There's a lot that still has to be done, can be done. I guess I don't know where we ever ended with what's happening downstream with these guys. But as far as what we're doing up here, I would, if we want to table it or to get the math done first before we approve it, I get that.
I guess it depends on how fast we could get numbers
Right,
reviewed.
could we have it done in the next couple
I
of weeks?
find it difficult to want to penalize a landowner for someone else's rainfall, and I realize they're connected together, but still, in my opinion, this project does not hurt it if the science is verified. So that, to me, is the key
I would be
question.
okay, personally, I would be okay with approving the replat pending the check.
Verification of the math,
Verification of the
yeah.
engineering, but if that's not what they wanna do, I also don't want it to fail, because then
Yeah.
the
Well,
whole
I also-
process starts.
Yeah,
over.
but I'm also not in a big hurry to turn around and worry about somebody who's starting to move dirt when we got other problems we need to worry about. You know, so to be in a hurry to rush us through just so somebody can start moving dirt, not really my consideration.
And they've said they don't need to move dirt until fall time. But I also don't want to cast a responsibility to a landowner that may not have responsibility in this particular
I don't think
area.
we're Catholic responsible, I think we're checking and double checking.
Yeah, and that works for me too. And so it depends on what we wanna get accomplished downstream in the meantime. You know, it was certainly gonna take us some time to get the.
It's
water
definitely
meter.
connected hand in hand. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's all focused around the same problem, right? I mean, we want to make
Yes, it
sure
is.
that we're not doing it, and I think both things need to get done. And please, Jay, I don't think that I'm trying to be a bear, you know, to do things. I just wanna make sure our check and balances are in place for everybody. I mean, I think it's a great project, it's gonna be great for the community. I just think we have to have checks and balances all the way down through. It's not that there's an accusation that JEO's doing something shady or whatever else. I just think that it's better off for us and the public if we have our checks and balances all the way down through. So that's just my view.
If the water study was done first and it agreed with our existing data, do we feel comfortable moving forward with an approval?
If we had a third party,
Yes.
I would, yeah.
So we
So can
table
we-
it until we get it done?
Well, can we
I
approve
would
it?
tend to make that a motion,
I-
that if that agrees, are we agreeing tonight that we would move forward? Are we willing to vote?
So you want,
That'd
you're
be an
saying
option.
that
I'm
piece
willing
of
to make that
option two,
motion.
can we approve it contingent upon
On
the math
the
checking
the
on
numbers.
If we're all comfortable with, if the math checks out, I would be the same way. I would say, let's approve with the contingency of,
And
the
I'm
third party
sympathizing with
review.
what you guys, but I'm not sure what exactly we can get accomplished. I just don't wanna add to the problem downstream. I don't know how to quantify downstream.
It's hard to say this water and that water.
I know,
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic to
Yeah.
what we wanna get done, but I don't know how to phrase that.
I think what we're asking here is, are we on agree that it's improving at 17 or 18%? And if the study says it is, that just moves this project forward. At this point, it doesn't do anything with other downstream.
Yeah, that's, to me, what else is happening is separate from the project. I think the project has to stand on its own merit, but yes, that's my biggest thing is, we're all talking about this, and I'm thinking the longer we delay this, if we're actually improving this,
Yeah,
again, it's only affecting, it's 17% better out of 100 years for 2 acres. So
Yeah,
it's not massive, it's not a
4.38
thing.
acres.
But either way, I would still, again, it's an improvement, it's moving forward. I would love to see the improvement happen, so. If the math is right, and the engineers are right, which, yeah, I assume they are, but, yeah, I want to see it move, so. Again, it depends, are we there where we would approve it contingent on, or do we need to table it?
and so are we saying, just with the discussion here, so are we saying we would approve contingent upon verifying the math?
That
And
a
that,
third
is
party
that
comes
also
up the
with
same-
dirt can't move until we verify the math?
I think Shane and Chris are saying they want to table it, authorize the engineering, see the engineering review first, and then approve this at a later council meeting. I think that's what you two are saying.
So-
I think what Carl and Stu are saying is approve it now, contingent on the review before the grading permit. Those are, timing wise, those are two different
I
things.
understand the difference
You get
between the
report, it'll
two.
just be the next meeting, it would be up in 2 weeks later, after we get the report, we'd have another meeting that will, a vote to approve it then.
I understand the difference
Speed it
between the
up to 2
two.
weeks.
I guess I'm just saying if we approve it contingent upon the math checking out, we're still needing the math to check out. If we table it until the math checks out, then conceptually, we would approve it then. I suppose there's some timing in there where you could gain a week or two. You know, if we happen to have just met, then get the report back. waiting 2 weeks. I would
And
hope,
I think the only other difference is that it's 2 more weeks of conversations that can be had in the process if we table it too, so at the end of the day, I guess, I'm happy either way. I'm content.
Maybe Joe can add a little more when he gets back from maternity leave.
but I am with Chris, I would like to see, some of the discussion we've had there, we've had some lines or utilities moved, that it would be nice to see some additional projects.
Well, yeah, I think just some progress there, I think would make monumental difference. I just really do. I'm for the overall project. I truly am, but I'm also trying not to add to the problem. And I know we were talking about the numbers, I get that. It just, a little more conversation for due diligence, I don't think hurts.
I do agree that what you were saying, both scenarios lead to the same path
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
what we're trying to do. Only difference is whether you can start moving dirt or not,
Well,
I
hey,
get that.
they still couldn't move dirt.
They
until
still
the math
couldn't
was
move
done.
dirt if we approved
The
it.
difference is, if we got the engineering back in a week, they could start moving dirt in a week instead of waiting the extra 2 for us to get back together.
Yeah, I think
But again,
it's
I
just
also
maybe
believe
a 2-week
2 weeks
delay.
isn't a huge
I
deal.
think that's really the only difference
My
between the
thought is-
two.
My thought
actually
is 2 weeks gives us 2 more weeks to have conversations
Or
with
3,
people
yeah.
about it too,
That's true.
to make sure we're doing the right thing before we jump right in. So, I'm good either way, like I said. I'm good either way.
So if the motion is to table, it would come off the table by the council when we receive the information we're asking for.
Yeah, I think the motion, if you went that direction, the motion would be to authorize the hiring of an independent third-party review of the water study element of this, and then to table the matter until it's received.
So if you table it, does the public still have something to say?
Technically not.
Before you approve it?
Not to say they couldn't, but the way typically the Open Meetings Act would work on a public hearing is, once the public hearing's opened and closed, even if that measure goes to a later meeting, that public hearing was closed at the earlier one. So there is no additional comment from the public, because that all happened the first time. Not to say, Jerry as the mayor controls when people can say what, or council members can certainly ask people things, but from a purely legal standpoint, that was your only opportunity to talk.
So we won't know the other study.
Well, the other study, you would know for sure no matter what happens, because you would either, A, it would be presented at the next council meeting, which is public record, it would be disclosed in that, or B, if it was contingent on the grading, again, it's public record, you could get that third-party review of the water study as a document. So either way, you'll know what that review said.
I feel at this point, where we're at as a council, I don't wanna see anything fail or slow anything down any further, so I feel like tabling it at this point is probably the best option, so I will make the motion to, request that the city hire a third-party engineering firm to look over the paperwork, make sure that the math and everything checks out, and table the matter until that's received.
Let me say what I typed and see if that. Motion to authorize a third-party engineering evaluation of stormwater runoff, quantifying the numbers presented by JEL, and table the approval of the final plan.
Perfect.
Second.
Only took a minute.
Good.
Got it, okay.
Council, everybody understands the motion? Roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Raffle,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Ideas.
yes.
Okay. We're good with those subjects. We go on to public hearing number 3. Final plot of the replat of lots 89, 90, and 91.
No, I did. It's okay, I can fix it.
North Highlands Phase 2, consider approval of final plat.
It's a public hearing, so.
Yeah, public hearing, anybody in the public want to speak to this?
So what is this? What is this?
So this is currently there are 3 lots, 89, 90, and 91, which are located directly north of the park area on Phase 2 of North Highlands. This would take those 3 lots, combine them into one, and split them into 2. So you're gonna have 2 bigger lots out of the 3 lots. So 1 less house. And sorry that it's not on there.
I was gonna say, all I can find is the notice.
Yeah, that's the
Sorry.
public hearing notice,
North of the water tower,
right?
or is that in conjunction to the park?
Directly, no,
The
It's
park's
directly north of the
water
park.
tower,
yes.
and it's north of the park.
Oh,
Right, so there was water tower, and then the park, and then 3 lots. Those 3 lots are being switched into 2.
If you guys wanna
Too
see it, I can grab it, it'll just be scanned.
It's under 4. Isn't that what this-
Oh, did you put the wrong one? It's in 4? Yeah, there's a plat.
Ah, there we go. Nope, that's not it.
Nope, that's a plat 4-4.
Oh, yeah, 4th Street, that's not us.
So turning 3 lots into 2.
So this was previously, you had the plat in your packet when we came and asked for the waiver of the preliminary platting process to move to just the final.
Is that us?
Yes,
So again, we're turning 3 lots into 2.
yes,
One less house.
right.
One less driveway.
All right.
Is this a public hearing?
yeah, we're still in public hearing.
Are there questions about turning 3 lots into 2?
No questions.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Hang on.
Roll call.
She's getting, she was trying to pull it.
I was trying to get there. Okay, now I'm ready. Warford,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Diaz,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Okay,
Motion to approve the final plat.
But I guess, there would be one question, is that gonna affect the assessments to cover? the-
No, we've already had that conversation, and it would be, the assessments for 3 lots would be
Split.
combined and then split in half.
Okay, so those 2 lots will just pay a little bit more on the assessment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I thought some of the bigger lots.
So there
There
we
you go. There it is.
So these 3 lots are being merged and split into 2. So we'll have lot 91R and lot 89R, and there'll be no lot 90.
Okay.
I think Carl made the motion, I'll second.
All right, seconded.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We're trying to still start second.
I can do
Right.
sign language over here.
She didn't see it.
ready to vote? We haven't voted on the.
No.
I think they have people
It's
interested.
Contingent on
phase
this.
The paving starts in August.
Roll call. Warford,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Diaz,
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Public hearing number
Did
4.
we approve the plat? Sorry.
Those approved.
Yeah, we just-
Yes.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Public hearing, number 4 on the approval of,
We're gonna be off 1 for these votes, that'll fix it.
keeps jumping back. Amendment, proposed zoning amendment at 216 West 3rd Street, Wahoo, from C1 to NRC, as requested by Brett Geringer. Public hearing is now open. Brett, you want to speak to that?
Yes.
The owner and part of the public.
I'm Brent Geringer, 216 West 3rd Street, Wahoo, which is the property that I'm requesting this zoning change. In 2021, I received a letter that the zoning was being proposed to be changed to NRC. At that point in time, I was anticipating retiring within the coming years, and I had a representative from a company called MedRide out to look it over, because I have friends that deal with handicap accessible properties. And she came out and looked it over, and I've got 4-foot wide hallways. All the doors are 3.0. The bathroom's handicap accessible. It's a 0 entry. There's a concrete ramp. It's the property just adjacent to Burger King. And, the basement's got a full kitchen in it, 19 feet of countertops, a 3/4 bath. If you put egress down in one of the back rooms, you'd have a basement or a bedroom down there, so you could have full-time 24/7 care if a person that purchased this wanted to use it out of a wheelchair. I removed the galley kitchen. There's a non-weight-bearing wall that could be pulled. New galley kitchen could be put back in there. I've talked to another company, Bathing Safely, I think is what it's called. Not that these would be used, but it would be nice. They're all interested in coming out and giving estimates on converting this property to that sort of use. And the bathtub was pulled out of there. The plumbing's still there in the walls to put a walk-in bathtub in there. I've got, I asked her, how easy would this be able to convert into that type of housing? And she goes, it's a hard 10 out of 10. Well, the zoning didn't go through. I didn't pay much attention to it, but the zoning didn't go through on that. I think at that time they were trying to do the whole Chestnut corridor, and there was a great deal of opposition to that. This is just a little half block off of there, so it didn't go through. I don't know if there was any problem with that, but all of the residences all around, there's residences to the north, south, and east of me, adjacent to me, that are all being utilized as residences. So I've talked to talked to the realtors, and they've said, this would be the way to market this property. And, the affordable housing in Wahoo is everywhere, is in short supply, and a handicap accessible housing that this lends itself to is very desirable, and I think would serve the community well that way.
Okay. Anybody else from the public want to speak to this?
Not enough handicap homes in Wahoo, that's for sure.
So you're talking about turning the NRC would allow you to turn this into apartments?
No, not
Single
well.
residence, or?
There's all sorts of this sort of thing could actually be converted into. I don't know how all the regulations work, but I have a friend, for instance, that works part-time now as he's semi-retired. He and his wife go and live at a place full-time, and for a week or so, and they have residences there. I mean, there's that sort of thing's a possibility. I don't know, I don't know how all that works, because there'd just be one bathroom upstairs, one down, so I don't know. It makes the Share VTech rents a place just east of me, and that was purchased by someone who had planned to move into town and live there, but they passed. I believe their son rents it out to Share now. But boy, if somebody could come in here, I mean, that ramp at 0 entry, you could roll right in there, put a different door on the front. Like I said, put that galley kitchen and a walk-in bathtub back in there. You could have full-time live-in help, if you put egress in the basement for a bedroom down there, full kitchen, additional kitchen down there, and 3/4 bath. It's just, I just like it to be able to be marketed that way, as well as, commercial, light commercial. I mean, there's already people quite interested in additional light commercial. I don't know how many people are building affordable housing.
Council have any questions of the developer? We're still in public hearing.
Yeah, I'm just curious to what uses we give up by moving away from C1, and you're okay with that?
Well, NRC, I developed this property originally when it was NRC, so I put this clinic in there when it was NRC in the first place.
Okay.
So, it's office space type of stuff, but everything around is residential. It just makes more sense. And this is
sticks up there on its own.
and this is what the planning commission originally wanted it to be, was NRC.
And the distinction, Stu, is that on C1 versus NRC allows for single-family, two-family, and multifamily dwellings. That's the big distinction between NRC and commercial. In terms of the commercial element of NRC, it allows for basically retail and business offices. That's kind of your two categories, unless you're going to get a conditional use permit. Whereas in the commercial zoning, it goes a little farther than that in terms of allowing for barber shops, child care centers, commercial recreational facilities, meeting halls, laundry establishment, just a few additional things. It opens it up to a few more commercial uses.
Right.
This isn't spot zoning, we're not gonna get a.
No, because on the south end of the property, it abuts NRC, so if it was standing alone, I would tell you you can't approve it, but since it does abut NRC, it wouldn't constitute spot zoning. Really just comes down to a public policy question for you guys.
So anything else from the public?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Roll call?
Warford.
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Krejci.
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
As a zoning amendment, this isn't an ordinance or anything that requires multiple approvals, or it is?
It is an ordinance.
It is an ordinance. Motion introduced.
I'll second.
Any other
Questions?
comments?
Anybody have any issues that we wanna talk over, or we wanna skip ahead and do all three in one shot?
Did Shane second?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd say the big two questions for you guys here is, one, usually you're looking at where is it residential dwelling next to a commercial facility. So other than Burger King, that probably wouldn't be a complainant, because if I'm a commercial business, I don't necessarily want residential structures next to me, right? Because more complaints, nuisances, all that sort of thing. But absent that, because everything else is residential around it, that'd be really your only
There's a fence.
complaint.
I was looking at the other way, saying, you know, if you're a C1 owner, I mean, that potentially has more use and more value for people wanting to sell, but I truly believe it needs to be the NRC and
That's what it should be.
it belongs where you're asking.
We can just, again, I'm comfortable, I'd make the motion to skip the three, or, yeah.
Wait.
We already got.
Skip.
Just skip all that.
Roll call.
Motion waived.
I think she's ready for
Did
it.
you get a second?
I need a second to
Second.
waive.
Go ahead and do it.
We'll do both of you, because that'll make my minutes easier. Okay. Okay, Warford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Krejci.
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
you bet.
And
Gotta
then,
do
That's what we still have to do. We still have to do the ordinance now.
that's just the waiver.
Warford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Krejci.
Yes.
Okay.
Now I'm done.
Okay,
Now,
Thank you.
Thank you.
now, final reading.
that,
Nope, we just-
we just
That was
did
it. I
Yep.
wasn't behind yet. Okay, now we're done.
moving ahead, yeah.
Okay, we're done with public hearings.
All right.
Okay,
We're good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
next is,
I don't have one yet, but this.
authorization to move forward with purchase of a new ambulance.
So I reported to you at the last council meeting that LARM did move forward with totaling the ambulance. And we will be receiving roughly $1,000 for actual cash value on that. We do have replacement cost coverage with an agreed upon amount of $375,000. So when we have that piece of equipment replaced, we would send LARM the invoice and they're going to send us the difference for the replacement cost. I put this on the agenda because I don't know what direction we're going to go. We have two options. It's either move forward with the purchase of an existing vehicle that is spec'd out sort of as a model vehicle, or we go through the process of speccing it and taking bids on a vehicle. I don't know which those are gonna be. My guess is if there is an existing vehicle that's available, we're going to need to be able to take action quickly, which is why I put this on the agenda. So I don't know what that is. If you're not comfortable with giving that kind of authorization, I'm okay with that also. I just wanna make sure that we're not missing the boat or missing an opportunity, because we can't act quickly.
I will
So,
say Grant did tell me if you were to order one, it probably wouldn't be here until 2027 sometime.
If we can find a demo unit, that would.
yeah,
you
that's
find
the
it,
word
yeah.
I'm looking for, a demo unit. Yes, thank you.
If we can get a demo unit, that would be much better, and again, insurance is paying for it
It
anyway,
is.
so.
Put us into a vehicle to have that second ambulance.
I do think being agile in a gate time like this, so you can move if something became available, would be the best.
And I think we trust those making the decision on what we, need to move
Well, I assure you it wouldn't be more than $375.
Good deal. I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Creachy?
Yes.
Nagel?
Yes.
Second item?
I just forgot to, maybe you've heard from Grant or not, but the loading rail
Power
system, the power cot and the rails were not damaged, so those will
Oh, they'll
be,
let us keep those?
they'll let us
That's
keep those so we
$7,000.
can take them out and use them in the new vehicles.
Yeah, I really thought they'd take that out.
That's good.
Okay, number 2, discussion regarding fireworks as requested by Julie Larson. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Julie. I think I requested us being on the wrong end of the agenda, but that's okay. I'm here kind of talking about the fact that actually I've lost any resemblance to any educated statement that I did have an hour ago, but I'll try to get it out. We're kind of concerned about the amount of time that Wahoo allows fireworks to go on here in town. They start June 25th, and as of last night, there's some still going in my neighborhood. Melissa did explain to me that we have a peace, what did you call it? Disturbance of the peace.
Disturbing the peace, yes.
Yeah, but that doesn't seem to work around here. But, you know, we have people who have to drug their dogs. They have babies that won't sleep because these fireworks go off. We're not suggesting that we don't have fireworks. It's just let's limit the number of days that we allow them to go off. I've lived several places. I lived in Minnesota. They don't even allow fireworks, and I'm not suggesting that. I've lived in Kearney, and they have a limited number of days, kind of like Lincoln and Omaha do, to shoot off fireworks. Just like to have you consider, we're not expecting any kind of an action tonight or anything, but just like you to consider listening to our grievances and maybe helping us to do something about this dilemma we're having in our neighborhoods. And I have somebody else has something else to say, so thank you for letting me get up here tongue-tied, but first time I've ever done this, so.
Okay. State your name.
I'm Sharon Markle, and I'm here to complain about our law that makes it legal to have fireworks 12 months out of the year. I understand that I could go home tonight and light off fireworks, and it would be okay. I know that Omaha, you can shoot them from the 2nd to the 4th, Lincoln the 3rd to the 4th. So why are we able to do it for 12 months out of the year? I know a veteran that he has to go in his bedroom and hide for 2-3 weeks because there's fireworks going off. I know another one that rents a place in the country so that he is totally away from the noise. And I thought we were to honor them, and I don't think that's honoring them to be able to do it this long. And I, again, am not saying that we shouldn't have them, but isn't a couple of days enough? I just wondered why, and if possibly, as a resident and a taxpayer, shouldn't we be able to vote on this? How many days? How many days we're allowed to do it? And that's really all I have to say. So is there a reason why it is 12 months out of the year?
I think it's been that way, and probably most people don't know that they can shoot.
Yeah,
Well, they do in my neighborhood.
Are you kidding me? I didn't know that was a thing.
You can only sell them certain days,
Yeah.
we have that, but shooting them off. we're open for the whole year.
Interesting, I had no idea.
Don't the hours change for New Year's Eve and Fourth, too?
I think the third and fourth is till midnight.
Yeah,
And
well,
then
Are you talking about here in Wahoo?
Yeah, isn't it that way?
No,
That's
it's
all.
not.
We don't have a
We don't
regulation
have
at
any
all.
regulation regarding it. And I
We
think
don't
it's
have a time of
nothing
day.
is
It's all
changed.
regulated by the police department, basically, and what constitutes a noise nuisance.
I swore we had like a 10 o'clock limit. till-
Well, the last night that I heard fireworks going off at 9:05 was July the 10th.
I heard them last night.
I heard them, but I was assuming, again, personally, if I'm being honest, I assumed they were just doing it illegally. Because I thought that you couldn't do it after the fourth, and I thought they had to be until the third. I was with you. I thought it was midnight on the third and fourth, but before that, I thought it was 10 o'clock. Apparently, I thought a whole bunch of regulations were in place. that
It's
we
a
don't have.
common thing, I hear it every board. And I don't say anything because you'd rather them think they're regulated.
I mean, if
Yeah,
you did
yeah,
a
yeah,
regulation,
yeah.
you'd have to
Yeah.
enforce it. How do you enforce it? You blow up your evidence.
I think that's, we
Why it's
did
hard to enforce.
talk about this in our staff meeting because we have gotten calls. And Joe really, Bodler, the chief, really emphasized the disturbing the peace. That is, it makes it an individual, some people would choose to light fireworks every night, right? I think they don't out of respect for their neighbors, but the disturbing the peace when it's late at night or early in the morning, I think that is actually more effective than our law enforcement. But I think addressing it, you get a call to dispatch, they go over, it's kind of it's a little bit difficult to enforce, and then in addition to that, there is the actual legal side of it when it comes to the enforcement, when you're prosecuting, right?
But wouldn't it be easier to enforce if it was, say, the 1 week versus 12 months? And one of my complaints is that, and I know that nothing can be done about this, but because it's so long, I have fireworks on my patio, I have them on my roof, I have them on my front porch, I have them in my backyard, and I have them in my front yard, and I never bought one. It's a little hard for almost an 82-year-old woman to be, picking all of those up. And I just think if it wasn't so long, they wouldn't have that long to shoot them off at my house. And that's the first time I've been here, so it's not a thing with, oh, we're going to get her,
well, the agenda says discussion, and we appreciate you coming. You've presented your case, and staff will look at it and see where we go from there.
Thank you.
I'd like to make one I'd like to know what, if there's any other holidays that we celebrate, like we celebrate the 4th of July, that last that long, except maybe for Christmas. But the rest of them are 1 or 2 days and they're over. And,
I think the last time this came up, which I believe Ken Jackson was the chief of police at the time when we had a conversation. Some of the points that were made at that time were that there are families, there are cultures that choose to celebrate birthdays with fireworks, or some of their own personal holidays with fireworks that don't fall in that time frame of the 4th of July. That was just a point that there are some people that want to blow them off. It's a family tradition to light them off for New Year's or whatever the case might be.
I think, New Year's has become more and more popular for fireworks.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not
That's what was brought up.
unempathetic to what you're talking about. I believe that.
yes.
I live next door to Sharon, and we went out of town to Arkansas on July the 3rd. We came back the following Sunday, and our neighbors across from us had a fireworks show. There was still trash all over the street, all next to the curb. I have a bag of fireworks in my purse see them, they're filled with concrete. When I got home, my car, which is white, was covered with fireworks. I wasn't even in town. I didn't buy any fireworks. They were in my yard. I had someone come mow our yard. I had to go through and pick up the pieces of concrete so it didn't break their lawnmower. They cleaned them up, they appeared to clean them up, but there was a stack of fireworks about this tall, about that wide, next to their trash can, which I took a picture of. Fireworks that they did not buy in Nebraska. They went across the state line and bought fireworks and brought them over here. All over my car, they're in my backyard, they're on my porch. The paper is stuck to my porch where I have to go out and get a scraper to get them off. I have a veteran husband, and I have a dog who, if we had been home on July the 3rd, probably would not be here today because she would have had a heart attack. She has noise-canceling headphones, she has a thunder coat, she has drugs. I have tried everything in the entire world to calm that dog. She's a 120-pound German Shepherd. So between my husband, who will not come here and tell you that it bothers him, but I can promise you that it does, and my dog, it has not been a good month of July. And we have lived here for about a year. We love our house, we love our neighbors, except for the ones that shot the fireworks off. But if we had known that this was the policy, that you can go shoot off fireworks 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we would not have bought that house in this town. Because it directly affects the way we live. And I do feel like you should at least have some restrictions about how many days or what kind of firework. And all the neighbors laugh, oh, they can't shoot them off after 10 o'clock. And then at 10:30, they're still shooting them off, and you see a cop car. And then as soon as the cop car's gone, the fireworks are going off again. It doesn't work. And we've been in the military. We were in the military for 26 years. We lived, 11 different places. Nowhere have we ever lived where we had to deal with this.
We'll look at it,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you.
You bet. Mayor's comments, I don't have any tonight. Council comments? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting.
What was the shortest meeting?
It wasn't the
I told my daughter, I'm like, I'll beat you at 8 o'clock. So she's been waiting for me for an hour. I don't know why I didn't see the planning commission saying on their face.